Hi everyone, my name is Digvijay Parmar and welcome back to my YouTube channel Pick Up Pencil. In today's video we are going to talk about procedure-oriented programming language and object-oriented programming language. So we are going to learn that what are basically these kinds of programming languages and how do they behave. So basically both of these programming language are already popular and many computer systems have already been implemented and currently running in various sectors which are built in these programming languages. So let's take them one by one. Let's first take procedure oriented programming language. So as the name suggests, procedure. So this kind of programming language totally focuses on a procedure. Procedure we also call as a function. So procedure oriented programming languages are function specific. They focuses totally on the functions. So if I have to build a bigger program or bigger software in a procedure programming languages, the modules will be divided into the smaller pieces are called functions. So basically there will be different kind of functions created, and each kind of functions will have its own responsibilities, and within that functions there will be variables, there will be statements and conditions and many things. Everything will go into the specific functions. So to understand this a little more, I have this, I want to show you a little graphic design over here. So let's suppose we have to build a car, okay? A car in a procedure-oriented language, and later on we'll take the same car into the object-oriented programming language, and then we can differentiate how do they actually behave, right? Let's suppose I want to build a car in procedure-oriented programming language. I will decide, as it's a function focused, I will have to define some function. Let's suppose a car needs like rotate tire function, okay? Rotate tire. Another function car need start engine. And maybe third function a car needs is play horn. I've just taken examples. So now in the procedure-oriented programming language, this is how the car will be built. Each set of module is divided into the specific function, right? And all these functions will have their own responsibilities, which are again the functions. Now what things comes here, since in procedure-oriented programming language, each component is divided into a set of functions, so they can basically they can freely talk to each other. So, okay, before just coming into the code, let me just go through a little more into the function definition, and then I'll come back to the building our car into this. So principle, if we see, right, I have already talked about this divided into the small functions. Yes, procedure oriented programming language is divided into the small functions. Functions share global data, okay, and data moves freely. So this is how the procedure oriented programming language behave. Function shares global data and data moves freely. So data moves freely between these functions. So let's suppose I have some global data here. Global data means this program has some data. Now this data can move freely into any one of these functions. Any of the function created in this car program can take the data. So let's suppose I have a data called, a variable called, the global data called max limit. Max speed, okay, speed. How much maximum speed a car can have. Now you see, since we have the max speed variable here, all the functions within this car program have access to this max speed variable. So that means data can flow freely within these functions. There is no access or there is no security. So if we talk about just the limitation, we just talked about how does this procedure-oriented programming language behaves, but what are the limitations? So the limitations are there are no restrictions. So there are no restrictions. Any function can call any data, global data freely, right? There is no restrictions. Debugging is hard. So basically, let's suppose we have some global data and each of these functions have an ability to change that value or to access that value. If any of these functions can access this value, that means they can change it. They are free to change. They are free to alter whatever is present there. So that is why if this any global data can be changed in lot many functions, and we have just taken the example of just 3 functions, but let's suppose there are 100 functions. We are talking about the big software. So it will be very hard to find out that which functions have actually changed something. If something there is some bug or some error came, it will be very difficult to look into each and every function and see which has actually changed the data. So that is why debugging or error detection is very difficult in this kind of programming language. And third one is no reusability. So reusability means we will maybe learn it later into the OOPS concept, but since the job of a function is specific to that function, so that means if any piece of code is written into this function, right, it cannot be reused by other functions because it is doing the specific task. So that is what the principle of procedure-oriented programming language and some of the limitations. Now let's quickly come back to our object-oriented programming language. Now, the similar car I want to build in the object-oriented programming language like Java. Okay? So how does this behave? The object-oriented programming language totally focuses on the objects. So objects or data values. So objects has the data values. Data values are nothing but the variable, the fields or the attributes or the method or the functions within the object. Now, if I want to have a car class, right, I will have an object here. Okay, this object name, this class name I can have motion class, which will have a function rotate tire. Okay, I will have an engine class, or you can say engine object for now, and then play horn I can have an object called audio, right? And now this global data will no more be here. So if you see, motion class has already some data value like a field and a function. Data value consists of the attribute and functions, and engine has its own method. Now the max speed variable, which were globally in case of procedure oriented, I am moving that inside here. Now max speed, because I want to have only my engine object should be changing the max speed, not the motion or not the audio object. Because why the audio playing honk object will be changing the maximum speed of the car, right? So that is the overall idea, right? We want to segregate or we want to secure our properties so that the right class or the right function can change them. So that is why, since we have taken out the free flow of the data, we have divided this bigger program into the different objects, and now within these objects, right, there is really no free flow of data. The data cannot free flow now unless we have given the access. So then you can ask the question, if the data cannot flow, how do we talk to each other? How does one object can talk to other object? So there are some ways. So basically, data cannot free flow by default. If this object wants the access of the other object, we'll have to decide that and we'll have to declare that. But unlike the procedure programming languages, the data cannot go freely. That is why the security of data is there. And this is also the principle of object-oriented programming language, that it totally focuses on the objects, okay, and data is secured.